told the ladies back there, I said, I'm going to sit back here and enjoy the Friday night speaker with you all. You can handle it from here. Oh, glory. My name is Teresa, and I'm an addict. There's many of you all out there, but you are my sisters. Let's have a moment of silence, because we can't kick off this thing without inviting a power in here greater than ourselves. So let's have that moment of silence. Let's take it a step further and do the serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference just for today. Oh, again, my name is Teresa, my sisters. Come on. Hi, Teresa. I mean, it ain't like I ain't nervous. Come on now. We in this thing together. That was what my mindset was when I came up here. Girl, let me just tell you, let me brief you right quick about the trip. I'm coming all the way from Virginia. Of course, I am stopping in Atlanta, and there's ice and stuff on the ground. Okay, and that flight was late. Then I connected. Got on this other flight to come here. Sit with this man, and he was sitting right, and he acted like he was scared to talk to me and everything like that. And you know, you jammed in these little seats, and by me being so small, I didn't take up a lot of space. So finally, I just broke the ice, and I said, well, how are you? I mean, are you okay? Are you comfortable? And then he went on to talk, and what did I do that for? He did a fifth step with me. He talked mostly all the way, and I was, So I think I knew his story. I don't think he knew a damn thing about Teresa. And let me tell you something about this convention, the Circle of Sisters. Don't you know that old commercial that says, you come a long way, baby? You come a long way, baby. You come a long way, baby. Because let me tell you something. I'd heard a couple of things about a woman's convention, but this is my first opportunity to come here, to come and recover with women. Now, in the beginning, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't want this to happen. You know that. You're not in the blind, right? So you know you ain't all that popular with a lot of folk out there, right? Because they got all kind of voodoo and this and that and the other against this convention. This is a no-no. Because they claim, well, a convention should be for all addicts. And so. And my thing is, have you read the special interest section with the World Service Office and so forth? So these women, we got a right to recover. It's all right. I'm here to tell you it is all right. So whenever you can get a chance to get together with your own gender in the name of Narcotics Anonymous, bring your ass out here. And in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm real. I'm real. I was in my room earlier. You know, the disease of addiction, you know, I had a visit from two spirits. One is always the lower spirit, the other one is the higher power. I was laying in my room. Now, I went out with some beautiful women today. Paulette and the crowd over there, Carmen and the rest of them. They drug my old hind parts all over town. You know, and I had a wonderful time, because sometimes when we're speaking, we go to conventions, and sometimes we be jammed up in them little hotel rooms by yourself. You know, and it depends on how outgoing and outreaching the hospitality committee is and the programming committee. And let me tell you something, I really want to honor them at this time, because they made my stay wonderful. Susan, you've done a marvelous job. I got so sick of talking to her answering service, I said to myself, she's probably a walking instrument looking like a phone or something. But I'm finally getting the opportunity to meet her today. And I thank God, for this wonderful committee, because let me tell you something, it's not easy putting this type of thing together. I've seen conventions where they work all year long, and sometimes they end up not even speaking at the end of the convention. They're everybody mad, because, you know, you got some opinionated people out there, you know, and you want what you want, and you want to run things, you know what I mean? You don't mean no harm, you're thinking you're doing the best way possible. But sometimes we don't want to bend because we learn a lot of things about each other in service work, don't we? Don't not like me. Don't play a hate too soon. You see what I'm saying? But let me tell you something. I ain't so particular, so special. They didn't pick me because I was a fashion statement. You see what I'm saying? They didn't pick me because I was some kind of model. Let me tell you something. The God of my understanding touched somebody who touched somebody else who came and called me. So we can't give any of this credit to ourselves. We've only been vehicles. My thing is God will do his most powerful work in some of the most ordinary containers. And that's us. That's us. We are a special group of people, special in nature, because you know what? We could have died a long time ago. Nobody thought that we could recover. Once an addict, always an addict. Wasn't that old lie? So what happened? For the first time in history, a proven way has been found. The first time. Not a religious, but a spiritual program known as what? Now, I'm like this. I believe that if you hear one stir, you hear them all. And I don't say that to be facetious or indifferent. All I say it to be is I usually try to identify with the origin of pain. Then I'll go to the addictive agent, what it was that made us using what we used, and then the actual using itself. And then I go to the consequences of the actions, and then I go to the shame and guilt. And once I reach the shame and guilt, what do? Go back to the pain. So that's the 5 stages of the disease. Going over and over and round, and nothing happens until I step out and make a bottom. When I step out and reach my bottom, then there's hope for me. Because once I reach the bottom, I have nothing to do but come to the top. My story, let me tell you something. I have survived lead-based paint. I survived riding without seat belts. I'm just naming stuff they won't hear before when I was coming around, not to this program, but in life. I survived not having an air condition. I survived not having the remote control, the microwave. I survived having a window fan. I survived a lot of things, but I didn't survive the disease of addiction. See what I'm saying? All those things back in my day. Let me just say something. I'm 53 years old. I'm somebody's grandmother, somebody's mother. And I had a lot of things I could have been doing at home. I got the kind of family that want me to go nowhere without them. But thank God for this convention. I told my husband, I said, you got to sit this one out, baby. You got to sit this one out because he's been traveling with me from coast to coast. Wherever I go, he's bringing his tied behind right on with me. But it's all good because thanks to this program and my recovery, I got a husband to come somewhere with today. So I'm grateful. My story is nothing unusual. I had 3 particular parts of freedom in my life that I give all credit to, and that was the freedom of coming from my mother's womb, the freedom of having my civil rights, and the freedom that I found in Narcotics Anonymous. Now, let me tell you something. As a child, my keep and my being kept was left to other people. My mother was a single parent. She raised me as best she could. But she could not watch me in my development through my childhood. So, yes, I've come by way of being molested. I've come through Narcotics Anonymous with that type of thing behind me. I come by learning from a society that taught me how to lie. People who raised me taught me how to be the deceitful one, taught me how to manipulate. So I got all the little gems that come along with being in what they call a dysfunctional family. I hate that word. That make you sound like you're so off dysfunctional. I'm just using the word because I saw the shit in the book. And it kind of sounds good, so I said, well, I better bring this on because somebody might know about the dysfunctional thing, But really, all those things that happened to me, and then the fact that when I first, as a teenager and as a young girl, there was things in place like integration and segregation. There was like a separation of the races when I came along, and a lot of my character defects of being less than stem from being in sort of like that caste system then. But let me tell you something. The most prejudiced group that I had met was the very one that I was a part of, my own race. And there were times that we were treated in such ways and that had to do with the complexion of our skin, and we just treated each other in a bad way. So what happened for me was I was caught up in some of those things. I had a grandmother. My grandmother was about the color of your shirt, your shoes, and she was a very dark woman, and she had, my father was Mexican and Caucasian, so I thought. I didn't know until much later that that wasn't my true father. But as a result, and back then, women, let me tell you something, we didn't have a lot of acknowledgement or rights. We just got our rights really in the 1900s. Before then, we weren't hitting on nothing. Nobody really paid that much attention to women. Have you ever studied women's history? Well, the short end of the stick we've been given for a long time. So when some things happened to me, I couldn't really talk about my being molested outright because we were taught to take our feelings and close them in. As a child, you stayed in a child's place. As a child, you held your emotions because you didn't talk when grown folk didn't tell you to talk. And then you didn't tell what was going on in your household. And when things happened for me, I got rewarded for those things monetarily. I got rewarded and I was loved. And those are the things that were important to me. I wanted to be loved, and I didn't know that I would get rewarded for that secrecy. Now, I knew that there was something wrong with it. But as a child, like I said, my mentality was to stay in a child's place. My mentality and what I was told was to not share what went on in my house. So that went on for a while. But see, it didn't cease right then because what happened was I became addicted to the very acts that was being performed on me. So I learned how to associate money and sex together. So at a young age, they taught me how to be a little young whore. And I'm using that as a word that I know you know what the meaning of it is. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, I'm not going to paint some pretty picture because life was hard for me. And once all those things happened, as I grew older, then I went on and I got married to someone. Someone that I met that I didn't even particularly like. I did it because my mother was so tight on me, and I was the only child, so she made it so that I couldn't have a lot of freedom. So like I said, I cherished the word freedom. But I married this guy, and God knows, the first sexual experience, the one that actually penetrates, that I ain't hitting on nothing. It's a painful thing. So what happened for me was that was why we got into that relationship. And when that happened, I became pregnant. Now, my first pregnancy, I left home and my mother sent me away because at that point, you were said to have gotten in trouble. That's what they called it back then. Oh, she's in trouble and so forth and so on. We're talking about the 60s. So I know there's a lot of you out there that don't know nothing about what I'm talking about, but there's some of you that do. I see a few white hairs here and there, and that's all good. But basically, I was pregnant, and I was sent away from home to have my child. Thank you, because I'm telling you the truth, my mouth is dry as cotton. But anyway, as I did that, once I had my child, before 6 weeks, my husband had gotten me pregnant again. I couldn't even have my 6 weeks checkup, and so my children are like 11 months apart. And then, lo and behold, here comes the Vietnam War. I was able to shield myself going to school because I always had these big breasts. They got me in a lot of trouble a lot of times. You know what I mean? These Dolly Parton titties ain't nothing to play with. You hear me? I can't stand them, Paulette told me when I lost some weight, and the girls told me that they would go, but they just don't know. I won't always this big, but some things ain't going nowhere. But anyway, my husband went off to the Vietnam War, and he came back. And when he came back from the Vietnam War, of course, he wasn't right. You know, he came back with an alcohol problem. He was full-fledged, full-blown alcoholic when he came back. And, you know, and I understand that now. Before he left, he drank, but he was real excessive when he came back. He thought he would hear things. He thought he heard bombs. He thought he heard gun shooting, you know, and he would do things like run and jump up under the table and so forth and so on. And this was before I was full-blown. So I was saying to myself, that crazy so-and-so, look at him up under the table. You know, I mean, I couldn't get with that. I didn't understand what it had done with his mind. But he kept drinking and drinking and drinking. So, of course, the relationship kind of, we went our separate ways. You know, we tried to get together a couple of times, but during that part, after that point, my life continued to progress. I started getting involved with other people who did drugs, and, you know, same old thing, same thing. The disease progressed. I went through a whole lot of different drugs. You know, I don't like all that drug-a-log stuff. You see what I'm saying? But all I'm trying to do is make the identification with you to let you know where I come from and how I got there. But I went there, and you know what? I got with people who were using and who introduced me to more drugs. And then I got to involved with people who shot drugs. You know, I became an IV user. You know, I took the full path of getting high. I've had it all. You name it, my high was high. So what I did, basically, you know, I got those things, and then I got into the lifestyles, and I did the jails and institutions and so forth and so on. I made it to the big house, School of Hard Knocks, and I made it to prison. In 1979, they had a room waiting with my name on it. It was a cell, and it was for Teresa, you know, because I thought I could get out of anything. I thought that if I got into trouble, I had a mother that was going to enable me, and she was going to come to my rescue. She never failed me. She was just like a good shot of dope. She was on time, all the time. You know, and I used her. And I used up all of her funds, spent all of her retirement money and so forth and so on, cleaned out her bank account because she didn't want her baby in somebody's prison. She didn't believe that I was an IV user until the actual police officers brought her to my cell. I was loaded out of my mind, laying on the cot, and they just happened to shine a flashlight on me like I was an animal and showed her the tracks on my arm and so forth. You're talking about something degrading. Right then, it didn't come through full-fledged then because I was sitting there all high and everything in a stupor. But after the next day when she came and faced me and she told me, she said, "You've been shooting drugs." She said, "I would have never thought you'd have did that." I mean, those words cut me to the quick. But you know what? As soon as she got out there, I went and got high again. They just had to cut her, you know. And so basically, that was what my story was about. You know, ways and means to get more. Oh, that's wonderful. That's the road to getting high. Like I said, there's always some place where the pain originated. And the pain originated through childhood experiences. And then I fixed, because let me tell you something. I used to be smaller. You know, I found out that food was a good addictive agent. You know, I used to like that. Then I went running to the doctor to get me some diet pills. Oh, I have processed, baby. It ain't nothing that I have left out. You know? And then I got to the point where I would take those pills and things. And then I got to the point where I became the pharmaceutical addict and the prescription addict. Because sometimes, you know, some of us will turn up our nose because other folk use IV, and we ain't thought about all them damn pills we be putting up in our hind parts. You see what I'm saying? You know, you just don't know. See, because one thing about it, you know, high is high. I don't care if you put it in your mouth, your ear, your hind parts, wherever you want to put it at. You know, that symbolizes obsession and compulsion and addiction to me. I don't know about you, but you know, sometimes we'll sit in meetings and say, "Oh, she shot it. Ooh, he smoked it. Ooh, ooh, ooh." You know, and we be in some deep denial. But the bottom line is, we all kind of like come by way. We might come by different ways, but we go to the same place. You know, and that's what we're doing in here, because I'm not crazy. I know everybody didn't come in here smoking crack. I know a lot of y'all did, but I mean, that's another story. I ain't trying to point a finger at nobody in particular in here. You know, like I said, high is high. But basically, you know, in my using and in going finally to the prison, you know, that I thought that was going to be the most terrible situation or setting of my entire life. I went to prison in 1979. I got out in 1980. And then when I came out, you know, see, one thing about me, I can't understand it, but the disease doesn't bother me as much in prison. See, because it had me thinking that, okay, I didn't use here, but as soon as I got out, I felt like I could use again successfully because I had been away for a while. And I learned a few things. I said, well, I know something. I got something under my belt, and I know I can do this. But lo and behold, as soon as I got out, within 6 months, I was on the run. I was worse than what I was at first. And once they caught me the last time in 1980, don't you know I went to prison, and this time they gave me 32 years. They gave me 32 years. I was incarcerated from 1980 to 1988. You can look at me and say, oh, she don't look like it. I got the inside battle scars to prove it, believe me. But God spared my life. And that was then at that point that I asked the higher power if you'll deliver me from this terrible, terrible thing called drug addiction. I would be forever in your service. Now, I said those words then, and I made that promise. And 1988, when I came out, I stayed clean almost a year, and I went back again. You know what the disease told me? Say, Teresa, you've been clean 8 years. So you know what? You can party on the weekend at least 4 years before that thing catch up with you. I never heard. My mind told me that. It told me I could get high. It told me, well, you were in there and you were going to the drug program and you were taking advantage of things to put in your jacket so when you went in front of the parole board, you was ripe, child. That thing tricked me. It tricked me. And then I went down again, but this time I went to treatment. And see, this wasn't the first time that I tried to do something about my drug habit. Because I came around first time originally, not to the program, but trying to seek help in the early 70s. And they sent me to something called a therapeutic community. And that's the same as a torture chamber. They hung signs around my neck. They did things to me. They called it, they were giving me haircuts. They were giving me pull-ups on myself. And they put me in this place and they treated me just like an animal to me. Everything was degrading, and that was what treatment was all about then. That was before the basic text. That was before I even had an inkling that there was a disease that I was suffering from. But lo and behold, when that happened back then, I said I would never try to seek any more help for anything having to do with drugs. I ran from that program, and that was part of the reason why I ended up in prison in the 70s, in the late 70s, because I had violated. I said I'd never go back there again. But lo and behold, when hospitals and institutions came to me in 1990, when I turned myself in, 1990, my clean date is July 19th, 1990. We remember our last day using because that marks the turn of life. That marks what we call a rebirth process. And that was something that we adopted from another organization. What they did was celebrated something that they call rebirth when they recommitted themselves to whatever religious preference there was. Well, what we did was adopted something and called it our clean day because addicts and alcoholics are big liars. So we had to mark our date with something. So that's how dates came about. See, a lot of people don't know that, but that's how through something called an Oxford group from a long time ago. But the bottom line is, when I got clean, and my last day using was on the 18th of July in 1990, I found myself in a house, an abandoned house, with a guy that I had met maybe about 3 days ago. Because you have long-term friendships long as the dope is on the table. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody going no darn where while the dope is on the table. And then you get with each other. You act like you've been knowing each other for years. Don't nothing open up a friendship better than some good dope. You sit up there, you go to sleep, and you end up with somebody, and the next day you ain't never seen them before in your life. Done got high with them all night. What's up with that? Y'all know what I'm talking about? I'm here to tell you. I sit with that gentleman. This was his house. Let me tell you something. He didn't have any lights, and he didn't have any water. See, his parents had left him the house. I think they were deceased, but he was living there. And of course he hadn't been responsible because we were in the dark. But the disease had such a grip on me. I was sitting there trying to get high by candlelight. By candlelight. And then he had got some water from next door. He had some buckets laying around. And we were getting high, and I was sitting there puncturing my veins over and over, trying to get my high in that dim light. And then I had those small veins that roll, and I was just torturing myself over and over. By the time that I was finished, I was so tired, and my doggone sleeves were so bloody. I don't want to seem like this is, too gory, but this is what happened for me. I have to tell you the truth. This is my story. When they ask your ass to come up and speak, then you can tell your story. See, then you can tell your story. You can get up here and you can have the spill of a lifetime. You see what I'm saying? I'm just here to tell you that I don't know how that I survived that long with the type of drug habit I had and the amount of drugs that I was putting in my body. Killing myself, but God wouldn't let me die. That's where I give the power to. He wouldn't let me die. So I told that gentleman, I said, look, I'm so tired of this. I said, I want to stop, and I just don't know what I'm going to do, and so forth. So I'm just crying the blues, because, sometimes when we all high, we can reach some deep depression shit, I had no idea that I was trying to reach a moment of clarity there, but I thought I was all caught up in that deep depression shit. First I thought, well, maybe I better do this so I can talk to him so we can get us some more dope. I had my reasons, but then at the same time, I really wanted to stop. So I told him. He told me, he said, Teresa, you can stop anytime you want to. I said, okay, how? He said, look at me. He said, I can stop anytime I want to. I got control of this thing. I said, is that why we're in the damn dock with water that don't belong to us? That was my moment of clarity. I can see clearly now. That veil came out across my eyes, and I woke the hell up. I was woke. Next thing I know, when I woke up, I had to go. But see, one thing was holding me up, because I had to pause for a minute, because you know what? The last thing I did was let the doggone dope man have the car. What is it with them that they don't never bring the car back on time? Is it an initiation or something? They don't never come back on time. Make me sick. And then when they come back, you're all mad because you done try to do everything. You even gonna call the police on them. Here you are committing your crime, and you will call the police on them like they done did you so wrong. Then when he came back, I was mad enough, and then he told me, well, I know you're mad, but here goes something for your troubles. I said, God! He said, here's something for your trouble, and when he gave me that, you know what happened. So I had to do it a little more, but you know what? I'd be damned if I was going to sit in that house another day, and he won't go shoot up all my drugs either. So I got up, got myself together, took my car, and went to a relative's house. When I got there, I was so tired, I couldn't do anything but pass out. I had this strange odor with me, the one where you don't bathe and do. It wasn't any special cologne, believe me. But what it was that old B.O. that we have when we don't do it for a long. It's something about that dope-smelling B.O. that's different from the other. It's just like none you ever smelled before. So I laid on the bed. My mother came, kicked me on my feet. Boom, boom, boom. I said, well, what? She said, are you ready? Have you had enough? I said, yes, Mother, I have had enough. And that day I went to treatment. I went to the Riverside Regional Center in my hometown in Newport News, Virginia, and checked myself in. Because I knew, and I had a 20-some year run, I knew that after all those years, I couldn't beat it. I tried everything. I tried doctors. I tried ministers. They put their oil on me. They even exercised me in so many words. You see what I'm saying? Nothing could stop that powerful grip that I was in. Nothing that I did could stop the disease of addiction. Powerful motherfucker. You see what I'm saying? And don't pay me no mind, because sometimes a cuss word would give me some relief that a prayer might not. You see what I'm saying? That's all that is. That's all that is. That's all that is. That's all. See, because, I don't want you to run around where she ain't spiritual. It wasn't nothing spiritual that ran my ass up in the Narcotics Anonymous. That wasn't chasing me up in here. I was followed by the devil in the pits of hell. If you're an addict and you've had the disease of addiction you've had out there, was strung out, you have been to hell. See, we ain't got to die and wait to go to hell. We have been to hell. We have done everything, had everything done to us. The game had no rules. Ways and means had no limitations. We've done things whereas if we could see the things we've done in our closets, the bones would rattle. You hear me? Caught up in the disease of addiction. Caught up. They used to tell my mother, said she would post things. She would say, Teresa, I didn't raise you like that. And she put the biggest guilt trip on me in the world right there. The Christian home had the biggest guilt trip on earth for me. Because here it is, and another thing about me, I'm an organist. I'm a musician. Played in church for years. Started playing in the Sunday school and stuff like that. See, because I got stuff on the other side of my addiction as well as I got on the other side of my life. I wasn't always a junkie. I had some good things. I had music under my belt. I could play music. And then I played for churches. And then when I played for these churches, you know what? They couldn't protect me. They couldn't provide the aura of protection to keep the disease of addiction off my back. Because we got some folk that think you can run and hide up in church and you'll be exempt from the disease of addiction. We got them that go out of here on a spiritual zeal and think that the answer will be there. Now, I'm not saying that God ain't everywhere. The highest power and the creator is not everywhere. But he didn't stop the disease from coming at me in church. So I say that to say this. This is the last house on the block for me. The last house on the block. I mean, why not? I done burned all my bridges. It's got to be the last house on the block. Who else wants my ass? You see what I'm saying? I've been asked to leave out of more places than I've been asked to stay. Liar and a thief can't trust me. So I had to be going into a place of that caliber. I know now that why Narcotics Anonymous is a lot of times located in churches. Last house on the block. But as I used those drugs while I was in church, playing that music, there were times that I got to the point, because I didn't stop because I started playing. I got high playing for those folk, and I was playing for one of those holiness churches, and they would roll on the floor, and I would keep right on playing, because I knew the higher the spirit in there, I knew the more money that they would put in the basket, and I would get more tips. That's all it was to it. And so that's what I did. But not to stay on that, because that's irrelevant now. That's just to show you an identification where I was when I was stalked by the disease of addiction, and it really got next to me. But the highlight of my life has been coming into Narcotics Anonymous. And you need to clap for hospitals and institutions. I came by way of hospitals and institutions. Somebody came and brought me the message. Thank God for Narcotics Anonymous. We will bring it to you if you're blind, if you're deaf. And I'm surprised there wasn't somebody doing the sign language up here today. Because I said, normally when I go somewhere, somebody be flapping some hands. I said, and that goes to show me that this program is loving and caring enough that we will carry the message to any addict that suffers. We got Braille Narcotics Anonymous books now. You see what I'm saying? So there ain't no reason why you can't get the message. And the message is what? That an addict, any addict, can stop using, lose the desire, and find a new way of life. That's what that is. So when I got into Narcotics Anonymous by way of jails and institutions and hospitals and institutions and so forth and so on, I went straight to a group and I said I'd do everything different. I went to a home group, and let me tell you, they were middle-aged white men in that home group. I went for more than one reason. One of the reasons I went was because I couldn't see past color. And another one of the reasons I went because I said I would do something different from what I had done before. That was the only way I could stay. I had to face all my demons. I had to tear down my belief system and rebuild it with spiritual principles. See, because I wasn't spiritual when I came here. I was worldly. I wasn't spiritual. And those men loved me and took me to their bosom and taught me some things. I was sitting there sometimes like a buffoon. You know, you can't tell me nothing. I had no itis then. You can't tell me anything. So basically what happened for me was they start putting the traditions my way and talking about steps. I got a sponsor, but it was like I got the sponsor that I knew everybody knew in Narcotics Anonymous. We ain't had shit in common. You see what I'm saying? She was all dainty and everything, and she dressed good, and she had on her little cologne and everything. I come in the rooms with a baseball cap turned on backwards and a pair of sweatpants and some tennis shoes. Sister had nails and everything. I said, I want her. Because every time she spoke, they went to clapping and shit. They went to clapping. I said, I want what she got. And I went up and asked that lady. I said, listen, I'm looking for a sponsor. I still didn't believe that I was going to be able to stay clean because I thought if I got with a certain group in Narcotics Anonymous, those are the people who knew how to use responsibly. See, they were the ones that had the good connection for good dope that wouldn't make you blow all your money. You know? Good dope that had you so you could go to work and stuff like that. I didn't believe this program. I didn't believe this thing really truly worked. I know all y'all coming across the door still didn't believe that shit either. I know you didn't. You know? Because to see a miracle, you have to be a miracle. And to be a miracle, you have to see a miracle. And I didn't know. So finally, as those gentlemen were teaching me about Narcotics Anonymous and she was grooming me through the steps and so forth and so on, I began to grow. Then as I did my 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days, and I did it a day at a time. See, because that's too far for me to see. How I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something 90 days from now? I was like, how you do that? Say a day at a time. And I did that. And next thing I know, that cloud was lifted. Next thing I know, I didn't want to go to the dope man's house. I didn't want to trick with him in his bed. I didn't want to go and steal from out of my mother's house, go in her pocketbook. I mean, I had been reduced to sneaking and crawling on the floor into her room, stealing her rent money, things like that. I knew that I hadn't done that before the disease of addiction really set in. I wasn't even made of that kind of caliber. That's what I said, that kind of stuff, this disease have you doing things, they call them yets. You know, if you don't think that you are capable of doing something, you better say it's a yet. Because if you go back with the disease of addiction, it's possible. Anything is possible. So basically, what I happened to do was let them teach me, and then I got into service because the only way that you can keep this is to give it away. You can't sit on your grand ass and feel like you got it made and it's all, you know, we got some of us like that in here that we'll call them Narcotics Anonymous thieves, and we leave here with the message and then we don't want to share it. You see what I'm saying? For whatever reason, and then we got our service junkies. We want to give it all away. You know? So sometimes we damned if we do and damned if we don't. But the important thing is, in order to keep this thing, we have to give it away. And then I got into service with H&I. And then as I got into service with H&I became the vice chair, then the chair, and then I went further and went into the area circus. And then I became the vice chair, and then I went on to be the first African-American chair in my area. Like I said, this thing has been getting bigger and better and bigger and better, and all I had to do was show up. See, because I ain't so intellectual, I ain't so smart, I ain't so gorgeous, well, almost. But what I did was I stuck it out. I kept coming, and next thing I know, I began to come to, and then I came to believe. And next thing I know, I was doing steps. And one thing about steps are a personal thing to me. You know, I'm not going to give, a whole lot of in-depth step stuff. You got speakers that come after me, and you got workshops tomorrow. Carry your ass to the workshop. But what I will tell you is I gave up, I cleaned up, I made up so that I could keep up. And that's 4 steps right there. All you need to do is fill in the blank, get your basic text, the one that's got plenty of dust on it sometime, and get your how and why, and go from there. Because let me tell you something, the history of Narcotics Anonymous, y'all and us, me, we're blessed. Because there was a time in Narcotics Anonymous until addicts couldn't even meet together. You see what I'm saying? We had a Rockefeller law, and the reason we couldn't meet because we had so many damn outstanding warrants. And we were known criminals. And we were recovering in the other fellowship. But so many of us were going back out that recovery was not real to us because they were concentrated on one thing, alcoholism, and then we had too many things, so we were suffering from the disease of addiction. And sometimes we got to be mad with them, because let me tell you something, them staunch damn addicts, what you talking about? Hey, that's the other fella, that's the other fellowship. That's your mama. Where you think you came from? Don't nothing get my goat more than when they started preaching about that AA fellowship. I'm going to say AA fellowship. Because I know that it was 5 people that came from that AA fellowship. 3 of them was alcoholics and the other 2 was addicts. And they tried to put Narcotics Anonymous together in the beginning, just before 53. And Jimmy K is not your only founder of Narcotics Anonymous. He's only a co-founder. You got people like Danny Carlson. You got people in Fort Worth in Lexington, Kentucky. They had only 2 treatment centers one time, and both of them were it. All those people had a hand in this thing. And sometimes, you know what? All we got to do today is pick up a damn meeting list and decide which meeting we going to. Narcotics Anonymous didn't just catch on like that. And what about the people that messed around and started recovering and didn't have the basic tech? Some of us won't even read the damn thing. Face it, let's be real. You see what I'm saying? And of course, some of us do. Like I said, I'm going to apologize early if I step on your toes or move your feet out the aisle. That's all I got to tell you. Get your feet out the aisle, because if the damn shoe wag, put it on. Put it on. Because we're in the biggest room in the world, a room for improvement. That means it's all right to make a mistake in here. I did it. I didn't read my basic text every night. When a woman told me to read this for 30 days and that for 30 days, I said, can't you tell it to me? Can't you tell me to stop? I don't want to read. I was lazy. She said, well, you won't get it by osmosis. And she was little and prim. I didn't like her no way because she was smaller than me. I just said she was popular. And then when she had them little flip sayings she'd say to me, I'd be gritting at them. But you know what? The thing she told me to do kept me clean. I came to meetings on a regular basis. I asked questions. I became open-minded, because you can't grasp a new idea on a closed mind. When I got here, I was closed-minded. I couldn't hear nobody's voice but mine. But as the recovery opened me up, just like a flower, I began to hear. I began to see people living clean, accomplishing things. Because I came around with something known as, it was a terminal syndrome. I call it the imposter syndrome. And what it was terminal unworthiness of success. That's what it stood for, and I had to start recovering from that thing. And my sponsor would tell me all the time, you're worthy, you're worthy. And I would wonder, well, why does she keep telling me that? See, because I couldn't identify then. Because self-esteem is one of the worst symptoms of our disease, low self-esteem. And coming into Narcotics Anonymous, you're going to look at people, your skin all dirty, and I mean, you don't have your natural smell back. It's going to take a while. That shit got to cut through some skin. And then next thing you know, you're sitting next to women that are fresh and women that are well kept and everything. And it's easy for it to separate yourself, the first thing that cuts in is jealousy. Oh, she thinks she all that. No, I thought she was all of that. We had to reverse that thing around because she was recovering. See, some of us don't want to work for recovery. We want to get what other people have, but we never realize what the work that they had to do to get it. You know, we be jealous and we be gossiping and we be going through all kind of changes about some of our sisters and brothers or whatever, but I'm going to stick with sisters now. I'm going to leave the brothers alone. Where the man at? Okay. But what I'm saying is these are the things that we're faced with today. These are the demons that we're faced with today. The things that will come along and move out unconditional love. See, because we have a bond. As females, we have a bond. But the disease of addiction is still running rampant. See what I'm saying? And it still keeps us separated. Imagine what would happen if we were really unified all the way to the point where nothing could divide us. Imagine what would happen. See, we could conquer the world with that alone. But like I said, we got those things called the defects of character. You know, and which is why we work steps. But let me tell you something. The steps were great, but the thing that really got me were the traditions. See, I got me a husband in Narcotics Anonymous. They didn't promise me that. It didn't promise me that. When I came here, ain't nobody promised me nothing but freedom from active addiction. Here it is. I came out of prison. I came to Narcotics Anonymous. I came to my mother's house and had to stay in a side room off from the rest of the house because she thought I was gone, flew the nest and so forth. Then when I left there, I eventually got married. And then after I got married, I had the church wedding. You know what I'm saying? All the bridesmaids and all of that stuff. Then I got the house with the picket fence and so forth and so on. And I thought I was on top of the world, and there was that point in my life, and my meeting slacked off. See, because you know what? Something else held my attention. I didn't have time for my higher power. I didn't have time for my program of Narcotics Anonymous. You know how obsession and compulsion will get in there between you and your program. And next thing you know, the husband comes first, the children, the this, the that. And then sometimes we don't realize that it was Narcotics Anonymous that gave us the husband, the family relationship and stuff like that. And here's our famous pastime. I got other things to do with my time. You know, my life doesn't just revolve around Narcotics Anonymous. Your life better revolve around it. If you came here for the answer and you got the answer you was looking for, you better make Narcotics Anonymous somewhere in the picture up the front. See, because or else you'll be out that door with you and your disease together, hand in hand. But you know what, like I said, in those traditions helped me to live with my husband. Because I had issues. I hated men and didn't know it, and he hated women. You know, and that's like putting fire and oil together. You see what I'm saying? And we met in H&I. He was carrying the meat in 2 weeks, and I was carrying the meat in 2 weeks. My sponsor was saying, get in any relationships for your first year. I said, what? See, because sometimes we think that don't get into relationships mean don't have no sex for your first year. But that ain't what she said. She says don't get in a relationship. But little did I know that I couldn't get in a relationship, or little did I know I couldn't have the sex without finding myself in it. If I screwed you, you was mine because I'm clean too. If I laid down with you and gave you this good jelly, you ain't coming up in there meeting. Look, and don't even look at nobody else. I mean, come on now. You know how we do, because it's a new drug now. See, the drugs done changed hands. So I had to obsess and compulse over the doggone relationship. You know, and we had, from our own protection, we had to stop going to meetings together, girls. You see what I'm saying? Because you know what? If my eyes didn't see him look at something, I thought my eyes saw him look at something. Look, and I wanted to be dressed just like him, so you wouldn't be no mistake. We dress alike. You seen them couples that come in? You know what you know what I'm talking about? We were dressing. Look, we was cute. we be so we done reached the limits of cuteness, then we put on a hat of light too to match that. So you know we're item. Most miserable time that I ever had in recovery. I missed the message so much because I was so focused on him. I had to save him. I had to make sure that nobody got that dope. And see, sometimes we don't even know that that is nothing but the exchange of the disease of addiction. That's nothing but a drug changing from the drug I put in my body to the drug that I was using to fix myself, a new addictive agent. First thing I did, my sponsor got me to do, after I figured out that she didn't really want my man, which is why she was telling me what she was telling me. Because you know we're going to play Inspector Clouseau. But somebody try to take the dope from us, what you think? You try to take my dope. We didn't play that when we was actually on the physical dope. Somebody trying to take our dope. So when she told me some things, and I finally surrendered and listened, then I began to hear the message even clearer. See, then I could focus. Because how in the hell you think I'm going to focus trying to watch him? You know, and sometimes that don't sink through to some of us because we figure we can handle things. But how you think you got here? You was handling things when you came through the door. And it's about coming in here letting somebody tell you how to live this new way of life. You gotta stop listening to your own voice. Self-centeredness is the core of the disease. You know, and if you're not hearing nobody's voice but your own, you into the triangle of obsession. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to be there. See, because sometimes if you can't break out of there, you'll go back out there. So she continued to tell me things about my relationship. And then, as I said, I began to work those traditions. My common welfare came first. And because my common welfare came first, you know what I did? I found out that I was a little more sicker than just the regular addict. I had to go and get me some therapy. I had to lay on the couch. I had to lay on the couch. Ain't no shame in my game, but I had to lay on the couch. I thought therapy was for rich white women. Somebody told me, well, Teresa, you don't need to do that because the steps will give you everything you need. They was trying to play doctor on me. I didn't see their asses in times of illness pamphlet. They weren't in there. It told me to take care of myself and to take those medications and to trust the physicians and so forth and so on. But I didn't know that. But when I got that therapist, let me tell you something. I ended up doing 4, 5, 6, and 7 for about 4 years straight laying on that couch. I was going through steps, but the steps were still blocked right here from entering my full heart because I still had other illnesses. See, because what I was doing was I was still sleeping with that individual when I came in Narcotics Anonymous. I had slept with him ever since I was 5 years old. It never stopped. And I would get up and sometimes I would be so full of shame and guilt I couldn't even share in a meeting. I couldn't look somebody else in the eye. But see, I didn't see it as a sickness. I just thought I was just this rotten tramp that was sleeping with an uncle. You see what I'm saying? I couldn't even take it past sleeping with just a regular person from the streets. It was a family thing. And I continued to do that. And I did that in Narcotics Anonymous when I first came. You know, I'm going to tell you the truth. I've had 2 children, and I've had 6 abortions. I've terminated 6 pregnancies. I knew who they were all by. You see what I'm saying? But I wasn't willing to go through the shame. And I know damn well I didn't want it to come here looking like an uncle. So what it did was my shame and guilt pushed me into a place where I had to clean up my act behind closed doors. And when I had these abortions, I think today, because of a result of that, I think that's one of the reasons why God hasn't blessed me to have more children, was finally the man of my dreams. You know, because the last time I tried to get pregnant, or I got pregnant, I had this miscarriage and I had to have all this blood and so forth and so on. And after that, I wasn't able, you know, to get pregnant anymore. But let me tell you something. I look back at that now, see, because I know for myself today, God has placed grandchildren in my life. So I had the opportunity to raise them. See, he won't open another door, won't close a door without opening another one. And he knew that that was my heart's desire to share with this man, you know, something that our two bodies had made, that we had come together and made. And for the first time, it was clean and it was real and it was natural and it was normal. But I still had some work to do. So when I cleaned up my act with the therapy and so forth and so on, and I have a beautiful therapist. He's been in my life 5 years now. You know, I wouldn't go anywhere without him. I mean, let me tell you something. A good meeting and a good therapist is all I need. But basically, when I had that therapist and I did those things, then the next thing, that was my common welfare, you know. And then being into my second tradition, you know, talking about what I did with it was an ultimate authority, was in the control of our home, me and my husband. Neither one of us rule. You don't rule, censor, dictate, mandate, or force anybody to do anything in Narcotics Anonymous. If you do, you're not of Narcotics Anonymous, so can that noise. But me and him let a loving authority be the head and the cornerstone of our life, and we both were in charge, but God was the authority over all of us. And then that desire to be a member, all we had to do was have the desire to stay inside of the relationship. Him don't go and bust no drawers, and me don't go and get none neither. We were two that had the desire to stay in the boundaries of marriage. And each one of us was autonomous. See, you ain't got to just say, well, this is for the group. A group of what? Two is a group. You can have that in your relationship. You can have a blueprint of how to have a successful relationship. See, and that's what I did with those traditions. And then we carried the message that what? Two old dope fiends like me and him could get together and live without using, without no dope involved. You know about money, property, and prestige, so we went and carried our ass to get direct deposit. What dope fiend you know want the other one to know what's in their pocket? That part wasn't destroyed. So we went and got direct deposit, and his check went there and mine went there. And after we paid our bills, you know what we did? We split the damn change. So that money went through many hands, and then what was left ended up in ours. So I couldn't say, well, you're paying more than me, or I'm paying more than you, because, see, money will break up some relationships quicker than anything. See, money is the root of all evil. It ain't told no lie. That's even in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, and basically what I'll do, I went on to the 10th, because those two in between, okay, we're not organized and we're not professional. There's no such thing as a professional wife or a professional husband, but we have professions. You see what I'm saying? And we didn't have to be organized. We had to be structured. Organization is controlling government. See, because sometimes we think it's just got to do with just the program. But the program we're talking about was our marriage and our family. And 10, having no opinion, mind your own damn business. Be minded our own business. We didn't have no opinion on what the folk in the fellowship were doing all around us. And when we were living our lives like that, we became attraction rather than promotion. We didn't have to go up and down the street and say, oh, we're a couple. We married. We treated each other loving and kindly. And we were attraction. Placing those principles before personalities, having had that spiritual awakening. I'm talking about from 1 to 11. Because you ain't got to be limited. I'm telling you, you ain't got to just do those traditions for the group. You put them in your marriage and then call me when you work all 12 of them and tell me how good it is. See what I'm saying? Because, see, sometimes when I was fighting with the principles before personalities, sometimes I would go into a meeting and I would put his ass down in a bad way. And, you know, everybody knows who your significant other is. You can go to the moon if you're in your area. You can be talking, well, he's so-and-so. We know who your husband and your wife is. We know what's what. So I would get in there and talk junk about him. And then I would try to, you know, we're manipulative people. And, you know, we want to have the ones that's on our side. We got to be right. We suffer from righteousness in here. We got to be right. So when I found out, and my sponsor told me, stop sharing so openly about your husband in those meetings like that. If you need to go somewhere that folk don't know you. But people know you, or call me, or get with your support system. Because I was causing him harm. I was damaging the damn steps. But I had to be right. And for the most part, when I found out that this is what I was doing, I began to know how to condition myself to live a program of Narcotics Anonymous. It's easy. All I had to do was open my mind, because I would have never thought that the traditions could come into my household and work me and my husband. Never thought it. And that was where your spiritual principles were. You know? And one more thing I want to touch on, and I'm going to close this up because my mouth's getting tired. Let's talk about these concepts. Another set of spiritual principles that we can bring. But let's talk about service work. Am I an integrating, healing, mending person in my home group? Or am I divisive? Or do I just like to gossip? Or do I want to be abrasive and abusive with my fellow sisters? Do I know all there is? Do I make sure that I know all there is to know about Narcotics Anonymous literature? If I'm going to learn the Narcotics Anonymous way, why in the hell ain't I picking up the literature? I'm supposed to know what those IPs say. I'm supposed to know what the book says and so forth and so on. If I'm not, I got to hurry up and get attuned to it. Because I don't want to be some damn Jim Jones follower and follow them all the way over there and commit suicide and jump off the water because they do. I want to know what I'm talking about. I want to know about the rights I have in here. See, one thing about where we fall short, we don't know about what rights we have right here in Narcotics Anonymous. We have unalienable rights. We have a right to redress without fear of reprisal. A lady called me not too long ago. She was the speaker for the Friday night meeting, open speaker meeting at a convention coming up in my area. And what had happened was they had chose her, and then they booted her out, kicked her out, and didn't even give her a good reason, told her that they didn't think that she was qualified to carry the message. And guess why? Because somebody told them that she was on a particular medication. They never even saw it. But you know how the good old girls will do shit. Took the law, you might as well say, into their own hands. Broke all the spiritual principles. I told her, I said, you get in there with your 9th and 10th concept and you blow that shit all to hell. Because nobody's in charge of Narcotics Anonymous. And when we set ourselves up to judge our sisters or judge our brothers, that is not of Narcotics Anonymous. Because we got things in place for all these sickness stuff that we go through, you know. But my last talk from home, they were telling me that they reinstated her. I said, well, ain't this a dog? But you know what? That's a good thing, because like I said, we're in the biggest room in the world. The biggest room is the room for improvement, you know. And the only reason why we don't comply to certain things is because we're either ignorant of the fact or we got our own hidden agendas. See, because our own hidden agendas would vote for our friends and put them, damn it, in the office in service work. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to vote for so-and-so, and we'll miss the person that's qualified. And don't let us don't like the person. Hey. We're political here sometime, too. I mean, we can talk about it. We're among friends, shit. If we can't talk about it in here, where can we talk about it at? I'm just trying to give you something to think about. See, because you got the rest of the weekend. We're going to workshop you up. You know, we're going to main speaker meeting you up. We're going to dance you up. We're going to comedy you up. When you leave here, you ought to be good to go. You ought to be good to go. And if you're not glad to be in a room like this, a Narcotics Anonymous, because you ought to be bouncing off the wall, you ought to be turning cartwheels because you have been spared through grace and mercy. You ain't done nothing so almighty for to get sitting up in here. Oh, no. Oh, no. And in closing, let me tell you this little cute thing, if I can remember it good, because I have senior moments sometimes. I forget little stuff. There was a man and a little boy and a donkey. And they were running off to town. They said, well, I'm going to town. They were going to town. So they decided, the man and the little boy said, well, why don't you ride the donkey? Told the little boy, you get up there and you ride the donkey. And they were riding the donkey. He was riding the donkey and the old man was walking. They passed by some critics. And the critics said, darn, that's awful how that little boy's riding that donkey and not letting that old man ride it. And so when they heard what was said, they decided to change places. So the old man got up on the donkey and the little boy began to walk. And then they walked by some more bystanders, and they said, darn, that's something how that old man is on that donkey and that little boy is walking. So they passed by some more people, and they said, well, we'll both ride the donkey. So they came by some animal lovers and said, darn, look how they riding that donkey like that. And the little boy and the old man, they finally got to the bridge of town. And they were trying to get over the bridge, and they said that they would carry the donkey over. But in trying to carry the donkey over, the donkey fell in the river and drowned. And the moral is, if you try to listen to too many people tell you what to do, you'll end up losing your ass. My name is Teresa. I'm an addict.